Chris?
Do you remember us?
Yes. Yes.
See?
Okay. I see it. I just put it a moment there.
You look like different.
They, get a haircut every 2 months. So it's cool just to buzz pretty much everything off and all that. So.
I'm trying to think, did you have a
Yes.
tea last time? Okay.
They have like a little single blade razor, so I just kind of, you know, like go past this double, you just kind of,
Just do the best you can, huh?
just gotta go with that.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How about you guys?
Good.
Good.
I did not expect to see this. That's for sure.
Surprised.
Yes.
Well, let me put some fears aside. We're not here for what you might think we might be here for.
Well, they didn't know what that's a computer room. I was like, I didn't know we had a computer room.
Without computers.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you remember, I talked to you, Tammy talked to you, Dave talked to you. We're all from Colorado. And so the last time we talked to you, it's a different situation, right? Our investigation was open and your case was open. That's completely different now. So your case is completely closed. Nothing about what we're going to talk about today has anything to do with an open investigation. So we're not here to get more charges on you or get any statements from you that are going to jam you up anymore, right? That's all done. So all of our cases are closed and the court case is closed. So there's nothing that we're going to talk about today that's going to get you in any type of trouble at all. And so that's, I wanted to make sure you knew that's not why we're here.
Okay.
But why we are here. So the three of us work from three different agencies, right? Quite a bit different. CBI, FBI, and Frederick PD, different goals. And the things that happened with you kind of all brought us together. And as the months have passed on since everything happened, we just keep in touch with each other and we keep talking to each other. And we've all separately kind of said, did Chris seem unique to you? And me and Tammy have talked about this, Dave and I have talked about this. Did Chris's situation seem different to you? And we keep having that conversation. We can't quite put our finger on it, right? We think that your life leading up to all the things that happened were very interesting to us. And for me personally, I don't know if you remember, but one of the last things you told me was, hey, Graham, I'm sorry that I started lying to you. And that stuck with me for the last couple months. It's ingrained in my head, right? I've never, ever worked a case like this where someone told me that ever. And so as I walked away, I thought, Chris is different. Chris is a little bit unique in that regard. So in talking with Tammy and talking with Dave, I said, what did you feel like when it all went down? When we were there, we were talking to you guys, and we all kind of, in our own different way and in our own different wording, said it all happened a bit too quick for us, right? So when we saw you last, we were talking about your family, about your parents, about everyone. And then the next thing you know, for me and Tammy and for Dave, all of a sudden some patrol officers came in and arrested you. And that was far quicker than we had hoped it would happen. And you understand why that happened, and we understand why that happened. But it left us with 1,000 questions that we didn't get to ask. And then even more importantly, I think it probably left you with 1,000 things that you didn't get to talk about with us. I don't know if you feel that way or not, but, and so that's why we're here today. We wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit more about everything, I think there's a lot of things that you didn't get to talk about. And so, that's why we're here. And it sticks with me that to this day, there's not one person that's told me, I saw it coming. I knew Chris was like that. I knew it. Not one person. So it's interesting to me, right? No, not one. So we want to talk a little bit about that. Some of the people that we work with, your family, Shanann's family, have said, if you get to talk to Chris, would you tell him something for me? So we have that to talk about today, and it's good. I think you'll like it. I think it will give you some closure. And so really that's why we're here. Are you available to talk to us?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. So off the bat, if you have any questions, just tell us.
Okay.
If there's something that you don't want to talk about, that's okay. We might press you a little bit.
November 2025 marks 7 long years since the horrific murders of Shanann Watts and her 2 daughters, Bella and Celeste. The world hasn't forgotten, and neither has the prison system that now holds their killer, Chris Watts. Locked away at the Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin, Watts serves multiple life sentences with no chance of parole. But as new updates leak from behind those thick prison walls, a disturbing picture continues to form. Chris Watts' life in captivity may be even darker than we ever imagined. Sources from inside Dodge describe a man living under constant fear, not of guilt or remorse, but of retaliation. Inmates reportedly despise him. Many have threatened his life, forcing authorities to keep him in near isolation for his own protection. He eats alone, prays alone, and walks the narrow halls under close watch, a ghost of the man who once smiled in family photos beside Shanann and the girls. But solitude hasn't brought silence. Watts still writes. He sends letters claiming he has been forgiven by God, and that his soul is clean. In his cell, guards say he keeps photos of his wife and daughters, a haunting, almost delusional shrine to the people whose lives he ended. One correctional officer described the scene as a man stuck between denial and desperation. He wants the world to think he's redeemed, but he never truly admits what he did. November 2025 records also confirm that Watts remains on restricted correspondence. He's banned from online communication, but some reports suggest he still manages to send written notes to strangers on the outside, letters that echo the same calm, rehearsed tone that first chilled investigators during his interrogation. It's as though he's still trying to manipulate anyone who will listen, still rewriting his own story from behind steel bars. And yet, there's something unsettling about how ordinary his days have become. He reportedly works as a prison custodian, cleaning hallways and toilets, keeping mostly to himself. No visitors have come in months. His parents communicate rarely, and the relationship between them remains strained. Even the other inmates whisper that Watts is a dead man walking, alive, but spiritually gone. Still, this November update suggests that Chris Watts hasn't disappeared from the public eye. True crime followers, investigators, and psychologists continue to study his case as one of the most disturbing examples of family annihilation in modern history. Each new detail, each letter, each alleged confession seems to pull the world back into the nightmare. 7 years later, the shadows of the Watts murder still linger, not just in headlines, but in the hearts of everyone who remembers the innocent faces of Shanann and Bella and Celeste. Their story serves as a warning and a reminder of how evil can wear the face of normalcy. If you want to stay updated on the darkest true crime revelations and hidden prison updates like this, make sure to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime, because sometimes the truth doesn't end when the prison doors close. When the calendar turned to November 2025, a new wave of attention hit the Chris Watts case. Not because of anything he said in court, but because of something far stranger: letters allegedly written by Watts himself. These letters, smuggled from behind prison walls, began circulating online through true crime forums and social media groups. They were filled with rambling thoughts, twisted justifications, and cryptic hints that he was still in contact with someone from his past. Possibly even Nicole Kessinger, the woman who once stood at the center of his affair. One letter began with chilling calmness. "Sometimes, I wake up and forget where I am. For a few seconds, I think I'm back in Colorado, and they're all still alive. Then it hits me. Every single morning. It hits me again." The tone was almost poetic, but what followed was deeply disturbing. Chris went on to describe dreams where Shanann and the girls would visit him, smiling and talking, before vanishing into the dark corners of his cell. Some letters hinted that he saw these dreams as signs of forgiveness, while others painted them as nightmares he couldn't escape. The real shock came when he mentioned that someone out there still understands me. True crime readers quickly speculated that he was referring to Nicole Kessinger. Some claimed the handwriting on new envelopes matched those of earlier notes connected to her. Authorities never confirmed the authenticity, but the rumor alone reignited public outrage. Watts' words also showed a frightening lack of remorse. He claimed that what happened was meant to be, that God needed them more than I did, and that everyone has their moment of judgment. These phrases weren't just delusional, they were calculated, almost rehearsed. Even from behind bars, It felt as if Chris was still trying to control the narrative, twisting faith and forgiveness to soften his image. Meanwhile, prison staff reportedly grew uneasy about his behavior. Guards said he spent hours writing in silence, staring into space, or whispering to himself. Some nights, they'd find him kneeling by his bed, mumbling prayers that sounded more like conversations. One officer admitted, "It's like he's talking to someone who isn't there. Maybe he believes he's being watched or guided." As the letters spread, Shanann's family was forced to relive their trauma. Her father, Frank Razusek, called them a slap in the face of justice. He demanded the prison tighten restrictions on what's male privileges, calling it cruel that the man who destroyed their lives could still reach people outside. Yet, the most haunting question remains: who's still writing back? Is someone feeding Chris what's delusions? Or are these letters part of a much deeper psychological game he's playing? One that keeps him relevant even in isolation. The deeper you go into this story, the darker it becomes. And trust me, the next chapter will reveal just how much manipulation is still happening from behind those prison walls. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime, because what's coming next might finally expose the truth about Chris Watts' life behind bars. By mid-November 2025, the buzz around Chris Watts had grown louder inside the prison walls. Inmates were whispering that something strange was happening, that Watts wasn't the quiet, withdrawn man everyone thought he was. According to several sources, a new set of recordings from within Dodge Correctional Institution had surfaced, capturing conversations that sent chills down the spines of even the most hardened prisoners. The audio clips weren't official prison calls. They were secretly recorded snippets, allegedly taken during late-night cleaning shifts or in the prison chapel where Watts often volunteered. In one recording, a man's voice, calm, calculated, and unmistakably Watts, could be heard saying, "They think I'm sorry. They think I found peace. But they don't know what really happened that night." Another inmate's voice responded nervously, "You mean, there's more?" Watts laughed, softly, almost amused, before the tape ended with the sound of footsteps echoing down the corridor. True crime enthusiasts immediately dissected every second of those clips. Some claimed it was fake, others insisted it was proof that Watts was hiding something. Maybe a new version of the story he'd been crafting for years. The idea that Chris might still be holding back a piece of the truth was terrifying, and oddly believable. Inside the prison, Watts had managed to carve out a reputation as both a model inmate and an enigma. Guards said he never raised his voice, never caused trouble, and spent hours reading the Bible. But those who lived around him painted a darker picture, of a man who used his calmness as a mask. One inmate described him as quiet but dangerous, recalling how Watts would sometimes stare blankly at the wall and whisper under his breath, "They forgive me. They have to forgive me." Another said that whenever Watts spoke about his daughters, his voice changed, not with grief, but with an eerie sense of pride, as if he still saw himself as their protector rather than their killer. As word of the recordings spread, reporters and podcasters began demanding answers. Was the tape real? And if so, what did Chris mean by, "They don't know what really happened that night"? A retired investigator from the original case spoke out, saying, "If Watts is hinting that there's more to the story, it's not because he's innocent. It's because he still wants control. That's what narcissists do. They rewrite the truth until even they believe it." Meanwhile, Shanann's family pleaded for people to stop giving him attention. To them, every headline, every rumor, every new confession was another stab to the heart. Another way for Watts to keep his name alive while there's lived with loss. But the prison's silence only fueled speculation. Were these recordings part of a psychological breakdown, or the start of something far more calculated? As one guard put it quietly to a journalist, Chris Watts might be behind bars, but he's not done talking. Not by a long shot. By late November 2025, whispers from inside Dodge Correctional Institution took on an even more disturbing tone. Chris Watts, the man whose name had become synonymous with betrayal and horror, was reportedly leading what other inmates began to call the forgiveness ritual. At first, it sounded harmless, a small Bible study circle in the prison chapel. Watts had always leaned on religion since his incarceration, often quoting scripture during interviews and telling anyone who would listen that God had forgiven him. But this was different. This was not repentance. It was possession. According to multiple sources, Watts would gather a handful of inmates after lights out. They would sit in a circle, candles flickering. Candles Watts somehow managed to get from the chapel supply. He would begin to speak not as a preacher, but as a man claiming divine connection. His voice would drop to a low hum, rhythmic and hypnotic. "Forgiveness," he said, "isn't given, it's taken. You must own your sins to erase them." Some of the men found comfort in his words. Others said the energy in the room felt wrong, like something dark cloaked itself around them. One inmate claimed Watts looked straight through him and murmured, "They're not gone. They're waiting for me to come home." That line spread like wildfire. Reporters who caught wind of the story began to dig. Was Watts claiming to communicate with his victims? Or was this part of an elaborate attempt to appear reformed? Then came the chaplain's report. It was quietly filed but somehow leaked to a small online forum frequented by true crime followers. The chaplain described Chris as a man detached from the present, caught in a loop of guilt and self-righteousness. He wrote that Watts seemed to believe he could cleanse his soul through repeated reenactments of his crimes, a chilling mix of confession and obsession. One line in particular stood out. He says he can feel them, his family, in the walls of his cell. He insists they've forgiven him, but when he says it, there's no peace in his eyes. When the story broke, the internet erupted. Some believed Chris was unraveling mentally, finally confronting the full weight of what he'd done. Others thought he was performing, manipulating yet again, building a new narrative where he wasn't a monster, but a man redeemed through his own madness. Shanann's parents released a short, heartbroken statement. "There's nothing to forgive. We want people to stop listening to his lies. He's taken enough from us already." Still, curiosity lingered. The image of Chris Watts, surrounded by flickering light, whispering about forgiveness and ghosts, refused to fade. It was as though the walls of Dodge Correctional themselves had become witnesses to something unholy. And just as the world was beginning to move on, another leak would surface. One that would make everyone wonder if Chris Watts' ritual was more than spiritual talk. Because this time, it came with video. By the end of November 2025, the world had once again turned its attention to Chris Watts. The whispers, the recordings, the so-called forgiveness ritual, all of it had built to a breaking point. But inside the sterile, windowless walls of Dodge Correctional Institution, time hadn't moved for him. Every second was the same. Every breath the same weight of silence. The leaked video, a short, grainy clip, showed Watts kneeling in his cell, eyes closed, his lips moving soundlessly. The camera, likely smuggled in by another inmate, caught only fragments of his words. But one phrase stood out. Over and over, he whispered, "They're home now. I can go soon." The internet tore itself apart analyzing what he meant. Was it a delusion, a confession, or a promise? For some, it was proof that Chris Watts had finally lost his grip on reality. For others, it was a chilling glimpse into a man who never truly regretted, only relived. Inside the prison, the chaplain requested Chris be moved to a monitored unit, fearing he might harm himself. Yet when guards entered his cell, they didn't find a man preparing for death. They found a man writing, page after page, describing dreams of his family, living and smiling in a house that didn't exist, a fantasy where nothing had ever gone wrong. When asked about it, Watts only said, "I see them every night. They forgive me now." The words sent a shiver through everyone who heard them, because forgiveness was the one thing the world knew he would never truly have. Outside, Shanann's family continued their quiet mission, turning pain into purpose. They started a foundation for domestic violence awareness, hoping that her story would save others from the same fate. 7 years later, Chris Watts remains in prison, a man trapped in his own twisted creation, haunted not by ghosts, but by memories he refuses to let die. And as the world moves forward, one question still lingers. whispered through true crime circles and across prison corridors alike. Can a man who destroyed everything ever truly find peace? Or is Chris Watts destined to live out eternity, reliving the moment he lost his soul over and over again? If you found this story haunting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Dark Matters True Crime, where the shadows of real-life stories remind us that monsters often wear familiar faces.